Good day. Thank you for joining the Cyber Recovery webinar. Today we are going to do. Actually, we have done 3 webinars before, so this is the 4th webinar we will be doing. We have Mr. Amir from Dell Technologies, and my name is Hakan Dincel. I'm from GlassHouse. I'm Regional Manager both for Merat region, both for Middle East and Africa region. So as GlassHouse, we have offices in both in Johannesburg and in Doha, Qatar. So most of the time I go and come. So this webinar, we have attendees both from Middle East region and Africa region. Let me open our first presentation. So I will start with a short presentation about GlassHouse, and then I will give the floor to Mr. Amir. So who is GlassHouse? Who we are? I will start with this one. It's going to be like 10 minutes. After a short GlassHouse presentation, we will continue with cyber recovery. It's going to be like 35-40 minutes, and we will have another 5 to 10 minutes question session. So it's going to be maximum 1 hour. So we are planning to complete the webinar before 11. So who is GlassHouse? Actually, GlassHouse is an IT infrastructure service provider. We are around 130 people. It consists of 100 plus engineers and 20 plus account managers. Our focus is for mostly largest enterprises in the region. We work mainly with finance, telco, and public companies and holdings. We have hundreds of customers. I will say we have currently around 400 active customers. What we do is we are focused on business continuity and data backup. That's the reason we are holding this cyber recovery session. It's part of our business continuity and data backup portfolio. We also do SAP services. We are very strong at cloud services, and we do next generation managed security services as GlassHouse. We have very strong financials since 2004. We are, every year the number of customers we have is increasing. We have some strategic partners. Dell Technologies is our #1 partner. We are also working closely with Microsoft and SAP, and we have other partners as well. As I said in the beginning, we have office in Johannesburg, South Africa, and another office in Doha. Currently, I am here in Doha, but in the following weeks, I will go back to South Africa as well. So when we look at the portfolio of GlassHouse, our main portfolio is Dell Technologies. We are one of the main global service provider of Dell Technologies. So we have engineers, like 30 plus experts, totally dedicated to Dell Technologies. We do a lot of projects, especially for data protection, backup, and cyber recovery for Dell Technologies. We also support for storage, VxRail, server projects as well. We are good at Fortinet Extreme Networks. We come up with cloud-based models. So we have a lot of cloud solutions. So we give like backup as a service, monitoring as a service, container as a service. We have a SAP certified hosting service. What we do is we both give SAP services on-prem and on cloud as well. We have lots of security services. Our cyber recovery service is one of these services, especially we give on-prem for the customers. And as I said, we do lots of SAP projects. So in data backup and cyber recovery, we only work with Dell Technologies. We are Dell Titanium partner and global partner of Dell Technologies in the world. We are advanced services delivery partner. And in the last 7 years, we are choosing the best service delivery partners of Dell. Actually, they given this award. Other than Dell, we work, as I said, with SAP, Microsoft. For the operating systems, we work very closely with Red Hat and SUSE, and of course, VMware. These are the vendors we work closely. So what is why Dell from GlassHouse? There are two reasons. One of them is we are very good at Dell Technologies. If it's a storage, if it's a server, if it's a backup, if it's a AVMR, networker, data domain, Power Protect, data manager, doesn't matter. We are expert in these technologies. It has been like 20 years. We have been investing and we have been doing these projects. So we do hundreds of projects every year for Dell Technologies. This is half of the picture. The other half is, it's not only Dell we are good at, we are also good at application side. So we are good at Exchange, we are good at VMware, we are good at SQL, Oracle, ERP, SAP. In all these technologies, we have experts. So normally what happens is, if it's a Dell expert, they say, okay, we understand the Dell server, we understand Dell storage, we understand Dell backup, but we don't understand Kubernetes. No, it's not the case with us. It's not only Dell part, we also understand the application part. So when we work with the customers, when we support the customers, we support them both Dell products and the application side as well. There's a major difference that we put on the table. As I said, in the last 9 years, we are given 7 times the partner award. We are waiting it in 2023 as well, this year. We are Dell Technologies advanced partner and qualified with many Dell products, including Power Protect portfolio, PowerScale, Unity, Wakesrail, all these kind of products. So we are a strong Dell partner. What makes us unique in the Dell area is we are supporting hundreds of Dell customers. So we support over 8,000 customer calls, especially for Dell every year. We support more than 50 banks and telecom companies and more than 45 public enterprises. So we have a huge experience in Dell. We have a unique relation. We are focused on Dell Technologies, which means we only work with Dell, we only support Dell in the vendor market. So we have a very unique relation with Dell Technologies. We give managed services for Dell portfolio, for cyber recovery. We have a very strong engineering team. They are very strong in Oracle, Microsoft, SAP, Kubernetes, Rancher, Cisco, Azure, and Amazon. These are the areas we are very good at. And we have a very strong cloud experience as GlassHouse. So we have many certificates in these areas. Yeah, the cyber recovery. So I will give the floor to Mr. Amir in the cyber recovery part. What is cyber recovery? How we solve the problems of the customers? Normally what happened is in the last 6-7 years, there's a huge increase in ransomware attacks to the organizations. Every year it's 60%, 70%, 80% of the organizations, I mean, of the countries are hit by ransomware, and the effect is increasing year by year. So cyber recovery has been a very hot topic. In the last 12 months alone, as GlassHouse, we have done 8 cyber recovery projects with Dell. These are very important projects. Currently, we are doing another project in Oman, cyber recovery project. So this is a very hot topic. I believe any customer, any partner has to focus in this area. Yeah, this is the part I want to talk in the first 10 minutes about GlassHouse. Yeah, Amir is going to continue for the cyber recovery part. And the floor is yours, Amir.
Sure, thank you, Hakan. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon from wherever you're joining. So my name is Ammeerudeen. I represent the data protection team in the Gulf. I'm based out of Qatar, and I cover Qatar and Oman as well in the region. I've been with Dell for over close to 10 years now at different capacities, and I've been working on data protection for close to 15 years. So without wasting any further ado, let me take you to the presentation. All right. So, as Hakan pointed out, there has the cyber attacks are very prevalent. We all know that it's now the new normal wherein we hear about cyber attacks every now and then. And there is an attack happens that every 11 seconds, there is a cyber attack happening. And so what are we doing about it? And what is our strategy towards that? And what's the solution towards that? Talking about cyber recovery, before we could get into cyber recovery, we have to deal with what cyber resiliency is. Now, if you look at it, the topic today that we're going to cover is transforming data protection to cyber resilience. So it's quite important for us to know what cyber resilience is. Now, quite now and then, the notion with all of us, especially when we talk about security, is there's a first question that comes to our mind is, can your infrastructure prevent a cyber attack? This is a notion that we've developed over ages, at least me in the industry. Whenever we talk about security, we talk about prevention. How can we stop this, right? And of course, this is very important. This is the question that everyone's been asking, and we should continue to ask. But is that enough? So the point is, in order for you to completely be cyber resilient, we shouldn't stop with this question. In fact, we should expect that the cyber attack could eventually happen, or God forbids. The question that we should be addressing is, can your business withstand a cyber attack? So in a nutshell, the answer to this is, I will be able to, or the organization will be able to recover in case of a cyber attack, God forbids, right? So if you ask this question, more often organizations realize that, yes, today they are well equipped with solutions, with process, with people to prevent an attack. But what happens beyond that? What happens if the attack actually happens? Are we able to recover from an attack? This is where the cyber resiliency maturity has come and evolved. And today, ladies and gentlemen, today we stand at a point where every organization is talking about it. And we as Dell have been talking about it over a period of years. And we've been emphasizing on the importance of this, right? And what cyber resiliency is. So it's the ability to anticipate, it's the ability to withstand, and the ability to recover from an attack. So we need to expect that, yes, your prevention mechanism is always there. It's there to protect, and the security organizations are doing a great job by making sure that there is no attack. But there is this possibility of all those pillars would fail. Now, when I say pillar, whenever we talk about cyber resilience, is it just one product? Is it just one product out of the box? Is it just one solution? It is not. Cyber resiliency is a strategy. So it needs people, process, and technology all merged together and build a framework or follow a framework. So whenever we talk about framework, there are a number of frameworks, security framework that are out there. Let's take the NIST framework for that matter. The NIST cybersecurity framework pretty much deals with 5 pillars. If you see on your right side, these are the 5 pillars that I'm talking about. Identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. Now let's deal with each of these pillars. Identify, protect, detect, respond. If you look at it, this is something all organizations have been doing already. And in fact, the process is much more matured, and the teams are much more matured. The solutions are much more matured. We see the emphasis on security aspects on every organization. There is a blue team, there is a red team, depending on the framework that they follow. And of course, we all know how to identify a ransomware or a virus or any threat in the primary network, or any threat in the primary storage, or any threat in the primary servers, right? So this is there already. But what we are going to focus is not on the first 4 pillars, because we know for the fact that there are tools and process, there is a process and procedures, there are solutions and products already organizations have adopted. But what we are going to talk about is the recover pillar. The 5th pillar is very important, Why is it important? Is, God forbids, if all the first 4 pillars fail, are you able to recover from an attack? Now, whenever I say recovery, we all need to relate that recovery to data. In IT, in an organization which is digitalized, which pretty much deals with terabytes, petabytes of data, when I say it's compromised, it simply means that your data is compromised. Now, how are you able to recover? So whenever you talk about recovery, you always relate that to your data backup. Do you have the data backup that you can recover from? The security team, let's say, God forbids, have failed in the first 4 pillars. Now it's up to the system administrators, to the backup administrators to understand what happened and then go ahead and recover so that your data is clean now. Now, how often that a backup administrator is able to recover from an attack is what we're going to look at, right? As a system admin, as a CISO, as a CIO, what are the tools that we need if the backup itself is compromised, right? Now, one of the prime reason for us to talk about cyber recovery or cyber resiliency from a data protection standpoint is the fact that the attacks have evolved from targeting your primary storage, targeting your primary network to your backups, right? What if your backup is wiped? If the backup is completely wiped, you have no data to recover. Or what if your backups are compromised? In an event, God forbids, like I said, there is an attack and you need to recover because you failed in all those 4 pillars, you were not able to prevent. How often do you think that the backup is already not compromised? So how do you know that if the backup is compromised or not? So you have what we call as a golden copy. How do we maintain a golden copy? So we protect a golden copy from being compromised. So this is the strategy that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about some of the approaches that organizations are already adopting and some of the approaches that the organization will adopt in future in order to be completely cyber resilient, right? As an administrator, as any backup admin, in order to deal with this problem, they need some tools, right? In addition to the already existing tight frameworks and processes, there are people, but what about the products? What about the tools, right? Today, if we look at it, the first primary tool is the backup. Fair enough, organizations have already adopted to backup. There's no organization today, they don't back up their business critical data. And what about continuous data protection? In addition to the backup, do I have any replication technologies that is making sure the data is always in sync? What about immutable primary storage, right? Forget about the backup. Can I make the storage itself immutable? So this is again sort of a preventive mechanism. What about immutability for backups? Once I have a copy of the data, now this we call as a 2-copy resilience. What do I mean by 2-copy resilience? Is the fact that I have 1 copy of your data in one data center. I take a copy of that and then send it to the DR. And I'm sure every organization is already adopted to this strategy towards the backup. You have 1 copy in the production, you have 1 copy in the DR. Now, how will this be efficient in case of an attack? Will the company, will the organization be able to recover from if they only adopt, let's say, for a backup, or if they only adopt backup with immutability, or if they adopt backup immutability, and let's say they also build a vault, an isolated vault with the critical rebuilds. So when I say a critical rebuild, it simply means what we need to understand in case of an attack and in case of a disaster, right? Cyber attack is completely different from a disaster. A disaster is always not targeted, right? It can be a natural calamity, it can be an accident. You can always recover that data because not everything is compromised. But in case of a cyber attack, the bad players really target for a particular service to be down, which means every dependency on that data is down or compromised. So when you recover from that kind of an attack, you need to build everything from scratch. Now, when I say build everything from scratch, you need to build from your tier 0 applications to tier 1 to tier 2. Now, what's tier 0? Tier 0 can be your Active Directory, DNS, your network components. And then there are these dependencies. And then there is the complete end-to-end application dependencies. So we are talking about bringing up the whole service online, right? So what if you have an isolated vault with these tier 0 applications already rebuilt, so it's ready to be recovered? That's one level of maturity you need to look at. Or there are organizations which have already adopted to a fully mature model with a vault with protecting key applications. In addition to protecting your data in your primary data center, in your primary backup storage appliances, you also isolate that data and protect that in a isolated vault, and make sure you make the data immutable and do any kind of mature level scanning to understand if the data is compromised or not. So in a nutshell, for any administrators out there, the CIOs, the IT directors, the managers of infrastructure out there, they are already dealing with these tools. And it all depends on what level of maturity you modify, you adopt, so that you can be resilient. Now, here's an interesting slide. And this is, in a nutshell, this pretty much tells you how mature the organization is with respect to being resilient to an attack. Now, take a look at this graph. And this is where this represents an organization which has basic data protection. What do we mean by basic data protection? Is the fact that you just have your data backups stored in any media. Let's say it can be a purpose-built backup appliance, it can be disk, it can be tapes. This is basic data protection. This is basic backup. Now, what's the problem with this? Is the fact that is your risk level higher when you have just basic data protection? Now, keep in mind, this is absolutely important. It's not the fact that if you have a backup, you'll never be able to recover an attack. Absolutely, you'll be able to recover an attack, but the risk levels are higher because your attack surface are exposed. Because with the basic data protection, if you don't isolate, if you leave the backup storage appliances exposed to your production network or even backup network for that matter, without real isolation, there is a fair chance that your backup data can also be compromised. So what's the result of this is the ability to recover can range, yes, of course, can range from minutes all the way up to months, because you don't really know which data is clean to go for a restore. Let's take an example. God forbids, there is an attack today. Can you recover from a backup that's taken yesterday? You don't really know if yesterday's data was compromised. Probably it got activated today, but it's been lying there as a dormant, or it's idle for a while. And we've seen this behavior in some of the type of attacks wherein it is there for maybe months. So now it's very imperative for you to understand what's happening to your data, or is the data a real golden copy after you take a backup, right? So basic data protection sort of drags your recovery time to months. And let's say in this journey, organizations adopt some level of maturity, right? When I say some level of maturity, this can be just a feature that they enable in the existing data protection appliances or in the existing data protection softwares to make the data immutable, right? So when you say the production data is immutable, this simply means that there is some level of protection against that data. You prevent all this from an attack. Can this help you to recover faster? Absolutely, yes, because you are reducing that exposure. Now, let's say organizations take another step and completely build a vault with all the rebuilds that are required, right? This again helps the organizations to recover faster, because in this case, what's happening is all your dependencies are already ready and isolated. It's just that the data needs to recover. So you use the rebuild from the vault and you recover the data, and then you're up. Maybe this shortens your, what we call this as a survival time objective, right? It shortens your survival time objective with when you talk about immutability and have a dedicated vault with critical repairs. The next level is what we call as a fully mature vault. If you have a fully mature vault, this really drastically reduces your survival time objective from hours to days. Now, this is the evolution of cyber recovery, if I may call it. And these are the areas that every organization has been working on and trying to move towards the fully mature vault. What we're going to talk about today, we as Dell, what's Dell's answer to all these areas? What is Dell doing with respect to basic data protection? What is Dell doing with respect to immutability? And what's Dell doing with respect to the fully mature vault, right? This is where I'm going to take you across some of our capabilities with respect to the data protection solutions and what we do as the basic data protection. What do we do? What do we have offer? What are the customers using from our solution? How are the customers benefited from our solution? And what are we going to do about the fully mature vault and what do we have to offer, right? So whenever we talk about basic data, we will come back to the slide so that once we talk about all these 4 areas, we'll come back and understand where we stand today, right? Whenever we talk about basic data protection, it simply means, that's your foundation of your data backups, right? Let's say you have built a foundation with respect to tapes or with respect to disks, any solution for that matter, your backup media is the foundation, right? That's where you save all your copies. So you need to make sure that basic copy has all the things necessary, at least to prevent an attack to some extent, right? Or at least to prevent any intrusion into the backup copies. So as you all know, and some of you all, if you're not aware, our heart of entire data protection solutions from Dell. So when I say heart of it, is the purpose-built backup appliance revolves around any solution that you take for that matter, right? So we have a portfolio of solutions. We have portfolio of softwares to offer, but everything pretty much comes down to where we store the data. And the PowerProtect DD is an appliance where we pretty much use to any use case for data protection today, right? How resilient is this PowerProtect data domain? Like our customers have this as their basic data protection need. Is this resilient? Is this enough for us to, let's say, prevent an attack? Let's look at the capabilities PowerProtect DD has. And if you look at it, immutability has been there over a decade on this system. Now, because we are talking about cyber recovery, because every organization is talking about cyber attacks, how do we prevent from an attack? Over a period of few years, at least 5 years from now, 5-6 years, every organization is trying to talk about it and deal with this. And it, it's quite imperative that, we all talk about it today, but we've been doing this since 2012. And we've had this option of immutability out of the box feature without any license per se. It was all there as a out of the box feature for customers to enable and have immutability on their data, right? And of course, whether immutability itself is enough for you to be resilient is where we look at the graph and we mature our solution, right? So this has been there for a very long time. And in addition to that, it is built on what we call as the data invulnerability architecture, right? So this, the core of this system is built on data invulnerability, which means there is a continuous integrity check that's happening, that's always happening in the background. So in a nutshell, ladies and gentlemen, this one, the appliance itself is very much resilient and hardened, if I may have to call it, right? So there are these security features which makes it probably the best foundation any organization can have for their basic data protection needs, right? Now, going beyond foundation of security, there is also this efficiency factor. And as you all know, the PowerProtect data domain is probably the most efficient backup storage, purpose-built backup storage appliance in the industry today. We pretty much capture a market share of over 85%. The reason why we have this is the fact that the efficiency of this system is absolutely phenomenal. So why does efficiency matter here? So whenever I say efficiency, I'm basically talking about the capability to compress the data and store less data in your appliance. So you save your data center costs, you save your storage costs. But that also means that when you have something less to store, you have less to protect. That's sort of directly proportional to the fact that if you do not have a lot of data to store, you don't have to, expand your security horizon towards all of the data, right? So in a nutshell, with the basic data protection appliance, with its security capabilities and with its efficiency, our customers are able to build what we call as the two-copy resilience solution. So the two-copy resilience solution is nothing but organizations have already adopted to this with the fact that they're already backing up their data to their production appliances. There is a backup appliance, let's say for that. This is your production workload, and you have your backup production backup appliances. And then you take a copy of that and send it to DR. And this has been happening for over the years. And you make sure that you apply some security capabilities and features and make sure the data is immutable and somehow act resilient towards a cyber attack, right? So these are the features that we as Dell with the two-copy resilience solution without any further modification to the approach of data protection, out of the box, you have the capability to build a two-copy resilience solution, right? So these are the number of security features that are already embedded into the system. And in addition to that, there is one important question that everyone needs to address. All right, I have my data copy. I can make the data immutable by applying some lock on that data. But how do I know if the data is compromised or if it's not inside the, let's say, a backup copy, right? I need some level of scanning. That, of course, there is a lot of scanning tools that happens in your production workloads, right? So there are a number of security tools that organizations have already adopted. But are those security tools really scanning the data after you backup? The answer is no. So we need some mechanism to at least run some analysis on the data, which is in your production backup, right? So we need some anomaly alerting and reporting. Now, with organizations who have already adopted to a two-copy resilience system, they need some tools, and it should be out of the box. So we from Dell, for customers who use our end-to-end solution, we have first level capabilities of this analysis, what we call as the anomaly alerting, right? Now, anomaly alerting is nothing but, you run an analysis on your backup data, you understand some trends, and this can be sort of customized to monitor some appliances. You understand some trends and alert if there is anything that's suspicious. The trends can be, it can be the size of the backup, and there is a lot of heuristics that the anomaly alerting can understand and can alert you, right? But this is first level of analysis, right? We're just probably trying to read the metadata of your backup and understand, hey, this is the size of the backup every day. And today we found that the size is drastically reduced by 70% or 80%. So we understand or we suspect that there's something wrong with the data. That's the kind of analysis that you can do. Now, is this enough? The question is this enough, right? So the answer is, it is enough for some type of attacks, but it is not enough for a full range of attacks that we've been seeing quite recently, right? So in a nutshell, a two-copy resilience solution is something that the organizations are already having. They just need to enable these security features, but they're not really changing anything with the current architecture. So when I say architecture, you simply back up your copy to your production backup appliances, and then you have a copy in the DR. But is this enough? We don't stop with that. And this is where we need to build a maturity with respect to our existing backup solutions, right? So in your left side, if you see, you have your production data, you have your backup appliances, and you apply the 2-copy resilience solution, you have all the security features inbuilt. But there is a problem today, because the problem is whenever you talk about, let's say this is public cloud, or it can be a DR site as well, right? So if this is a DR site, your replication always needs to happen from the production to DR. So which means the replication line is always persistent, right? So you're not doing anything about it. Maybe you might have some firewalls in between trying to prevent all this access, but it's still persistent, right? And also there is a control path. So when I say control path, the administrators are the ones who are controlling the copy of your data backup from production to DR. And the administrators have total control of this, which means any bad player getting into the system will obviously know that there is a copy in the production and there's a copy in the DR. Hey, can I go ahead and wipe this off? Oh, all right, I know for the fact that there is also a copy because I have all the metadata information. I know where the copy resides. So there is a very big loophole with respect to a 2-copy resilience. Now keep in mind, have no doubt, it is definitely going to save you from just having a basic data protection. But how do we transform, or how do we get into this journey of resiliency, is by adopting to an isolated vault, right? So when you talk about isolated vault, you just don't stop with the production and the DR copy and the security hardening. What you really do is you take that data and you isolate that into a vault, and then you run a number of steps to ensure that you have a golden copy. Let's look at how a Dell PowerProtect cyber recovery solution looks like, right? Now, obviously on your left side, you have your data center, you have your production workloads, you have your backup workloads, and then you have your DR site. This is a typical, an ideal data center that you would find, or a data center architecture, a backup architecture that you would find in any organization, right? What do we do in order for us to mature this cyber resiliency, take the leap of building a vault and making sure that you're resilient in case of an attack? So what you really do is you take all the critical workload, you sync that workload. When I say workload, the backup workload, you sync that workload with an automated operational air gap technology. This air gap is the one that lets you isolate the data completely, and it is not persistent. You pretty much build a vault, you take the data, you copy the data, you lock. So when I say lock, you apply the immutability. You can apply all this immutability in a 2-copy resilient system here, but you really need to isolate and then build this lock. And then you just don't stop with the lock. You run an analysis. Now, is this analysis similar to the anomaly reporting that we spoke about in the previous slide? No. This analysis is the full content analysis, a full integrity check of your data. You just don't stop with metadata. You get into the content of the data, you break the data down, and then you try and compare this with all the known anomalies or any bad any attack that has happened. For example, the analysis engine that we use, it's called the CyberSense engine, right? This is based on AI and ML. Now, what it does is, because it's based on artificial intelligence and machine learning, it doesn't need any signatures or anything that needs to be updated from outside, right? And it can build a trend based on your data. So we will look at how CyberSense works and what it does, right? So when you do an analysis, now you are very sure that you have a golden copy of your data. And in case of an attack, you're able to recover from this. Now, this is how you build your maturity with respect to cyber resiliency, by adopting to a PowerProtect cyber recovery vault, right? Now we spoke about the analysis. What do we do? What do I mean by integrity validation? It is not just anomaly alerting, right? We build a comprehensive index. So when I say comprehensive index, it understands, it learns your own data. It can be very unique to each of the customer's data. Then we also have a security analytics that's run, right? Now, again, this is based on 200 plus statistics, very indicative of what cyber attack could look like from a data protection standpoint, right? And then, of course, we use the machine learning. Now, this machine learning algorithm is already trained on thousands of trojans and attack vectors, right? We've learned over 20 million files, understood all the anomalies and all the trends of that anomaly. Then we also make sure there is any corruption detected, right? Then the moment we see a corruption, we alert. So in a nutshell, a fully mature cyber recovery vault would need an integrity validation and not just anomaly alerting, right? That comes to a point, what are the differences, or what makes the integrity validation quite important than the anomaly alerting, right? Of course, anomaly alerting is required if you are not able to adopt to a vault. It's a step-by-step process. There are organizations who want, something is better than nothing, right? If you want to take your journey towards the cyber resiliency, I would emphasize on any process, any tool is absolutely fine. But it all depends on what you need end of the day. Are you able to meet the objective of recovering an attack in less than a week or less than 24 hours? It all depends on what objective you need to meet. Then it depends on what you want to decide and what you want to adopt from a solution standpoint, right? So in anomaly alerting, there are quite few vendors out there who do provide anomaly alerting in their data protection solution as out-of-the-box feature. We as Dell, of course, we provide this as an out-of-the-box feature. You don't really need to adopt to a cyber recovery vault. But where we stand out is the fact that we have the capability to give you an end-to-end integrity validation by building an isolated recovery vault. This really helps you stand out and be able to recover from an attack and really point down to an accuracy of, let's say, 99%, whereas the anomaly alerting can give you an accuracy of 85% simply because it only scans the metadata, right? So it's quite important we understand, we as organizations, when we take a decision, we understand what is there to offer and how does that help me in recovering from an attack, right? Some of the areas where organizations need to start thinking about building a vault. Whenever we speak about the vault, where do we start, right? The vault cannot be just one solution or product where you go ahead and deploy the vault and you call it off and you call it good and you say, I'm all cyber resilient. I don't have anything else to do. It isn't. It's always, it's always evolving. And there is no hard rule to this that the vault should look or that the vault should contain. It all depends on the organizations, how fast they want to move towards a maturity model. Some organizations can build a vault with just the critical rebuilds. You can simply have, today you can start off with a vault with just your tier 0 applications, a golden copy of your tier 0 applications, and build a vault and make sure it's always protected, right? Why do you need to build this? Because you can really recover from an attack quite faster, simply because you have all your dependencies up and running. Then it all points down to your application data recovery, right? So you start with tier 0, and then you build your maturity model to, okay, I now have the critical rebuilds. I can now build a maturity model with my tier 1 applications, the business critical applications, right? Now, so it is a journey, I would say. Some organizations who understand this importance have really gone out and gone with deploying all of this at one go, because their objective, there is a clear objective that they need to meet, right? So in a nutshell, if we go back to this this slide, because it really, this is where every organization needs to start with and understand where they fall in this graph. Because to me, I really like this slide with respect to helping customers understand where they stand with respect to the cyber resilient maturity, and where do we take them towards the cyber resilient journey, right? So whether you have the basic data protection, whether you just have the production immutability, or you have a production immutability plus a critical rebuilt vault, or whether you have a fully mature vault where you're protecting from tier 0 to tier 1 applications, or even tier 2 sometimes, right? In a nutshell, this is what the strategy looks like. This is what the solution and the solution and capabilities from Dell looks like, right? We as data protection solution, we just don't stop with one product or solution. We can tailor the solution according to the needs, right? Having said that, we sort of protect your business to the core, right from your production protection all the way up to, providing you an extensive service, not just building your vault. We go all the way up to, even talking about your secure development lifecycle. And then even it goes beyond with secure supply chain, right? So like I said, cyber resiliency it is not just one product that you can adopt and build and stop with that. It is a combination of people, process, and technology. Of course, people also, we can help you out. So we can deal with all these three. We can help organizations give you the right process, the right technology, and also give you the right people as well in order to have an end-to-end secure security model or secure cyber resiliency, right? With that, I'll probably, that's about it. I'll end my presentation and we can probably leave for question and answers. I hope we were on time.
Thank you, Mr. Amir. I mean, it was a perfect presentation as always. It was very clear on my side as well, but this is not the first time I'm listening. I have to admit that. As the cyber threats are increasing, cyber recovery solutions are becoming much more important. So this is the case, and Dell is one of the major players in this area, the early players in this area. As you have said, many years ago, Dell started investing in this area. So I believe most of the organizations, most of the companies have to consider a cyber recovery strategy in their environment. In the last couple of years, we heard things in El Salvador, in United States, that petroleum thing, another one in Europe. I mean, many companies are victims of cyber attacks, and it's costing millions of dollars to the companies. So every company has to give a thought how to protect their critical data. So thank you for the presentation. We are open for the questions. Do you have any questions? Okay. According to the cost perspective, there is not a one-time cost. The cost changes depending on your data. For example, if you are going to do a project for cyber recovery, let's say 300 terabytes, it's another cost. If it's protecting like 5 terabyte, 10 terabyte front-end data, the cost changes. So there is not a one budget for all these projects, depending on your needs, depending on your critical data, depending on your applications, depending on the level of protection, the budget changes.
Right. I would like to add to that, Hakan. It's a quite an important question, right? So we all tend to understand, or we all tend to relate a solution towards the commercial. How much is it going to cost me? And I think it's important for organizations to understand from a business standpoint, right? So organizations should go ahead and do a business impact analysis and understand how much is it going to cost for the organization if, let's say, they adopt, or if they don't adopt and go under an attack, what would be the loss incurred, right? So the loss will pretty much tell you how much you need to invest or how much you need to mature in order to prevent that loss, right? So in a nutshell, whenever we talk or whenever we relate anything to the commercials, It all depends on what your business standpoint is, what your business impact and analysis tell you about. And again, building a vault, it doesn't have to be a standard vault all the time, right? And like you pointed out rightly, we have customers who have adopted a fully mature vault with a clean room, with everything in there, because the business objective tells them to do so. But we've also had customers who have started with step one, with just having an isolated vault with immutability alone, and then they build their maturity with respect to running a full integrity analysis and so forth.
Yeah, this happened to many of our customers, by the way. I'm not going to name any of them, but I will give the example. The guy, the IT admin receives a call. One of the employee cannot reach the system. He just remotely connects to the server, and he sees on the screen, it says that your data is encrypted. So if you want the data, you have to pay this amount of money to the organization. The guy, the IT manager goes to the company and recognizes that all the infrastructure is gone. It's all encrypted. By the way, it's not only the production environment, it's the backup environment. It's also gone. And we had another customer. They have hyper-converged infrastructure. It has a similar story as well. But what happened in this site is all the production is gone. They had a DR location in another city. Disaster recovery site is also gone, because once the production site is dirty, it is replicated to the DR site. It's now dirty as well. So all the environment is gone. When they check their backup server was also encrypted. They couldn't power on their backup server because it's encrypted, it's not working. Their data in this customer, they had data in two places. One of them was on data domain, the other was on normal standard disk. The data on the production storage, it was also gone. The data on data domain, it was recoverable. Here their backup server was encrypted, but the data on data domain, we were able to restore that data. Unfortunately, it was only 15% of the whole data of the organization. It was a small portion. In my case, in the last 15 years, I have never seen data domain or these kind of things corrupted. All the environments are gone, but I have never witnessed that data domain systems being corrupted, even in these sites. So there's always a need to, you always have to consider this one.
Right. I think architecture matters, right? So any product and solutions that we look at, the architecture really matters, and we need to look at how strong the foundation of that product is. And I'm glad you said that. Data domain carries that heritage, and it still carries the fact that it is built on strong architecture, and that's the reason why it delivers the efficiency and the security capabilities been doing for so many years, over a decade, in fact.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you, Mr. Amir. It was a great presentation. We will put it on the website as well. Anyone later on can pass over the presentation as well. Thank you for joining the webinar. Thank you for being with us in the last 1 hour. I will send you my email. You can contact me, write me, call me anytime you want for additional information or additional presentation specific to you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.